Computer. All right. Welcome, everyone. Happy Pride. We are here with Annabel Paulsen and Lydia Wang to discuss our June fiction pick, Here for the Wrong Reasons. When we read romance books, they're always the most talked about, the most engaged with, the most beloved, and this book was no exception. Everyone went feral over Kristen and Lauren, and I am so excited to chat all about it. So let me introduce you to our lovely authors, and then we can get started. So Annabel Paulsen and Lydia Wang are the co-authors of Here for the Wrong Reasons, which was published with Alcove Press this past May. Individually, Annabel has written about music, books, and films. She received her MFA in fiction from the New School, and Lydia is a love and life editor at Women's Health, where she writes and edits content about sex, dating, and pop culture. Annabel and Lydia lived their own friends to lovers romance while co-writing Here for the Wrong Reasons. They're always either reading a rom-com, watching a reality dating show, or taking a little trip upstate. They live together in Brooklyn and hope to one day share a brownstone and a pug named Elise. Thank you for joining us, Annabel and Lydia. Say hello to the Sapph-Litties.
Thank you for having us. We are so excited.
Yay. So, first of all, happy Pride and congratulations on your debut novel together. I'd love to hear how the publishing process has been for you two.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to be here. I would say like my biggest takeaway from the publishing process is that it's so much easier with somebody else to do it with. It was like a really like strenuous and long process, even though we had like a relatively quick timeline in comparison to some other authors. But honestly, like our favorite part was like the community that we've met and all of the people that we've been able to talk about or talk with. And
yeah, getting to do it together definitely just makes it a lot easier. It's really nice that this is something that like has always been a very personal, like writing is something that we do together and publishing is something we do together. And that has been really beautiful and lovely. And it's really nice to be able to like celebrate with my partner, and we're celebrating each other and ourselves and something we did together. Yeah.
And also just to be able to like talk things through with someone, because a lot of times like publishing can be a super isolating process. You know, you're dealing with like a ton of rejection, with a lot of like long waiting times between steps. And it is really grounding to have someone to like talk about the difficult parts of the process with and externalize your anxieties so that you're not just internally spiraling the whole time.
Yeah. I love you guys. You guys are too fucking cute. I'm like, okay, so can you please walk us through the beginning journey of this novel? How did you two start writing together? Why this concept specifically? And at what point did you realize you two liked each other?
You might get a different version of that story from both of us.
Okay, I need both of your versions. I need
Do you want to go first?
Okay, I think we should start like context is we met in the fall of 2020 when we both like came back to the city after quarantine, and we started like we met, we bonded,
friends.
we had a lot of the NYU alum network.
Yes. Familiar.
Yeah, you're in the same network.
Literally.
So we like when we met, we started bonding over like YA literature, because that was kind of like what we were both focused on at that time. And we talked about writing. We expressed an interest in reading each other's work. I had just started my MFA program. And then over the course of the next like 9 months, we really just started watching The Bachelor together in like a group of friends.
Watched separately, but we started sort of watching it together, and that was something we bonded over a lot.
Yeah. And then my birthday in 2021 was on a Monday. And we went to syndicated to watch The Bachelor. And we were like 3 glasses of rosé in. Lydia was like, I have always wanted to write a book about The Bachelor where 2 contestants fall in love with each other. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds so fun. I would totally love to write it with you. Obviously, writers say shit like this all the time and you just like don't do it. You're like, yeah. And then it doesn't happen. But I don't know. I think it was probably a mix between excitement about the like project, excitement about each other, and like a new friend. Honestly, like we had just been getting like closer over the past like few months. We wanted to like hang out more. And then a week later, we went on a writing date that turned into a real date. And the rest is history.
Does that line up with your sequence of events, Lydia?
Yeah, it does. I guess the week window, well, I think it was more than a week between, I guess.
It
Yeah.
really wasn't.
What was your birthday? June 21st would have been when we had the idea. I mean, famously 3 years ago at Dyke March, we wrote in the morning and then we held hands the entire march. And she thought that was
in a friend
platonic.
way.
She thought
In
that
a
was
friend way.
Yeah.
Can you tell that she wrote the Kristen character and I wrote Lauren? Because she is like, this is what friends do.
I just love women. I love my friendships with women.
And then
so
in
much.
fact, I left to go to another pride party. She stayed with the group and she sent me all of these texts like, come back, I miss you. And she was like, that was platonic.
I was out at the time. Like I wasn't like closeted or anything. Like I wasn't confused. I just like genuinely was like, I like this person. I want to hang out with them.
Yeah. Anyway, but
The way that Compet still strangles you even when you're out and you're like, no, I just really want to be around this person all of the time, and being around them makes me feel good and beautiful and seen and heard, but no, I don't want to kiss them on the lips.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but this was, I would say, a pretty brief. The Friends to Lovers was a pretty short journey compared to probably how our marketing materials make it sound. But we were writing the book, and then yeah, there was one day a few weeks in where we went to a bar that we thought was gonna have Wi-Fi, and it did not, and we'd already gotten a bottle of wine, so we were like, well, let's just hang out and talk. And then it kind of just turned into a real date, and then we became a couple like very shortly after that.
Not long after.
I love it. I love you guys so much. So I'd love to know, what are some of the unique benefits and challenges of writing a novel with another person? And like, what does your writing process look like?
Yeah, so I'm a big outliner. I think it probably is a lot of my like media background when I write articles. Like I have a very structured way of doing that. Annabelle's way more of like a vibes, like going with the flow, going where the story takes you.
Which is why I've never finished a book before.
So we did sit down and outline this, and I think having the Bachelor framework really, really helped with that, because we really wanted to format the story like a Bachelor season. We kind of knew when you're watching the show, there are certain times where like all the drama happens, usually around fantasy suites, and then there's sort of the big romantic conclusion, which is honestly not unlike the classic format of a romance novel.
Yeah, they have like all of the same beats.
Yeah, which is really interesting because The Bachelor is not typically a romance show. I mean, it is on paper, but oftentimes it's not.
It's beyond that now.
Yeah. It's its own secret third thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So with this one, I made Annabelle sit down and we did that. And like I said, we each wrote a different character. So I did the Lauren chapter, she did the Kristen chapters, although we did, of course, like edit each other's. We did do some jumping around. It kind of started with us going back and forth, but sometimes she would get ahead of me. Sometimes we would go back and like do another one. And there were a few chapters where we really went in and did it together. I would say the biggest ones were their sort of conflict fight.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to give anything away, but the very end.
I don't think listen, it's a romance novel, so they get together at the end. Like, I don't think that that's a spoiler. So the big like love confession, we also wrote together. Anything that had a lot of like dialogue from the other person's character that they
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that we felt like it was weird. We were like each the ambassadors for our characters. So like we wanted to make sure that the other person felt that their character was being accurately represented,
Yeah.
that this was really something that they would say. And it was really helpful because we could kind of embody that character and their thought process and really like work through with each other as like proxy to like what that conversation would look like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That makes so much sense. Like that you're kind of like fighting for your character. Like you're like having this conversation back and forth as your own characters, which is really interesting. Like you don't have to think about, oh, what would this person say? You're like, nope, I'm right here. This is what this person would say. Write it down. I love that. So you made these characters so deeply lovable. And even though Lauren was on the show for the wrong reasons, I was rooting for her the entire time. But Kristen really won me over as a fellow horse girl. And her queer awakening is something I know resonates with so many Sapph-Litties, like never seeing a gay happily ever after represented, being alone for so long, you never really even question your sexuality. And then, of course, having that overprotective best friend with oodles of sapphic childhood tension. Um, totally can't relate to that whatsoever. But what do you think Kristen and Lauren learned from each other about queerness? Because Lauren is coming from a place of more experience, but of course has things to learn about herself and queerness in general through this other person. And then do you have a character that you personally relate to more? I know you wrote each individual characters separately, but do you like see yourselves in them?
Wow, lots of great questions. I mean, I think Lauren, her whole thing is I think she compartmentalizes a lot of stuff. And something that I was thinking about a lot is that it's interesting because obviously both of these characters are dealing with a lot of like compat in different ways. And Lauren is closeted, but the way I see it and her arc in general is I think that she is generally kind of closeted about a lot of the things that she feels are most vulnerable and most ultimately special about herself, which she kind of realizes at the end. And I feel like Kristen's character really helps her realize that a lot of things about herself, including her queerness, including even the parts of her that are quote unquote unlikable and, you know, a little like cunning um and strategic, are all like parts of who she is and really special things. And so, yeah, I feel like, again, I don't want to give away stuff about the ending, but I feel like both characters kind of help each other like celebrate themselves with their queerness and beyond that. And I also think I really loved writing like Lauren's relationship with her best friend, who's a gay guy too. And I feel like that is also a really special dynamic because she's sort of, I don't want to spoil anything, but I feel like she sort of starts realizing through him, with him feeling more comfortable coming out and more open to that. She starts sort of seeing flashes of like the community that she could have.
Yeah.
And that I think she also didn't grow up in the same sort of background as Kristen with seeing like a total lack of queerness in her life. But I think she hasn't really let that in because she's almost scared to see if she'll be welcomed into that world. Yeah. Want to answer?
Yeah, I think for Kristen, Lauren is like a tangible lesbian. Like that's like her first real brush with what queerness could be. And maybe, you know, it doesn't look like the depictions of lesbians on like classic television.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is, and this is like my own experience with Compet as well, is just like being a femme lesbian. You don't necessarily see a lot of representation growing up.
Yeah.
And if you like traditionally like feminine things, you know, if you're a rodeo queen, even though rodeo queens are like mad strong, like really baller, like that can be, it can be complicated because you grow up associating traditional femininity with like things that men like. And so that can be like something to untangle. And I definitely had to untangle it and realize that for me, like liking women could still mean that I, you know, wear makeup and jewelry and stuff like that, which like, you know, that's just like important. And so I think it was also important for Kristen to see Lauren as the kind of like same kind of presentation that she has, and realize that that can also mean liking women. Yeah. What was the other question?
No, that was perfect. The second part of my question was, which character do you relate to more? I mean, yeah, I'm sure Kristen for you.
Yeah, I mean, like I think what's really interesting about these characters is that they are very like us and also not like us at all, which
Yeah.
is kind of what writing fiction is like. There's going to be like a part of us in any character that we write. But definitely for Kristen, I don't think I realized from like when we started how cathartic it was going to be for me to be able to write like a coming out story, which was not what we set out to do with this book. We didn't mean to write a coming out story, and a lot of people, a lot of like queer people have a lot of thoughts about coming out stories because it is kind of what like the media is inundated with. And I totally get that. And I definitely think that we need just more stories about gay people in general. But for this book specifically, and for the story that we were trying to write, you know, it really was important to me to accurately depict Kristen's coming out, because it was just like it was essential to her arc. And that ended up being super, super powerful for me to write as well, because I was like working through some of my own like internalized homophobia and like compet and stuff like that, and working through like my homoerotic friendships as a child.
I see you, queen.
Yeah, I am very unlike Lauren, honestly, which is why she was so fun to write and why I miss being her brain so much. And honestly, a lot of our sexuality journeys were kind of different, in part because also she's a lesbian, has probably like always known that, you know, since she was really young. I'm a bi girly. I feel like I dealt with a lot more like back and forth, like what is this like going on? But I actually think that her coming out was also probably the part that was most similar to me and my experiences. Because I feel like her journey is a lot about that gulf between like knowing something about yourself and like naming it and owning it very publicly. And that was something that was definitely very scary to me. And I also felt very it felt very cathartic to me specifically to write the scenes about her and like her loved ones from home and her sister. That was all like a very personal and beautiful situation to me, where she kind of is, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll stop here, but yeah, that was kind of my favorite and most personal part as well. And then I think this is kind of like veering away, but also parts of like the sex scenes were also really important, I felt like, to get right with like when you're early on and coming out, and like navigating like for Kristen earlier sexual experiences with women. That was also a thing.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I loved the way that you depicted that, by the way, like galactic slay and very hot. Okay, well, I know, Lydia, you're a massive Swiftie. I see Taylor Swift behind you.
Yes, she is. She's there.
As she should be, as is her place. But I'd love to know what you think are Lauren and Kristen's eras. For me personally, I see Lauren as a reputation girly, and I see Kristen as a fearless girly.
Oh my God, you nailed it.
You got it.
Really?
We have asked ourselves the same question, and those are our answers.
Oh my God. I don't know if this says more about like my reading comprehension or me knowing Taylor Swift's discography. But yeah, it's giving Look What You Made Me Do and like White Horse. That's
Oh, so true. I've actually never thought about White Horse with Kristen. I feel like I was listening to like The Other Side of the Door a lot.
The Way I Loved You.
The Way I Loved You.
yes.
And then also like a little bit of Debut too, obviously, because
Country Girl.
Yeah, like I feel like she's so like a place in this world. You know, she doesn't know what she wants, so don't ask her.
Yeah. I feel like Lauren is very like I did something bad a bit, but also a lot of the love songs and Reputation kind of fit them
Dress.
from her point of view. Yes, Dress, I think definitely. I think Delicate at parts. Dancing with Our Hands Tied, I would say.
Beautiful.
The angst in that.
I mean, she's an angsty girl.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now we have to talk about the faceless man on the so the hopeless romantic, The Bachelor, is Josh Rosen, sorry,
Very close. J name.
J names. And he's actually a really good guy. He really reminds me of Joey from the latest Bachelor, another J name. I know when he was announced, you two were like, this is literally who we wrote. But in the cover art specifically, Lydia, you and I have talked about this, I think, like where they're like very depicted, they're looking at each other, they're in the foreground, and then motherfucker's in the back with his back turned. Like we don't even know what he looks like, and it's amazing. He's like not part of their love story at all. He's kind of just there. And he's not homophobic. He's so supportive in the end. Like, spoiler alert, he like kind of helps and like pulls some strings to like make things happen. And he did all of that despite getting dumped on national television. So my question is, why did you make him so slay?
We were honestly like really aligned with this from the beginning, that like we did not want Josh to be a villain because we wanted Kristen and Lauren to find each other like very consciously and intentionally.
Yeah.
And we didn't want him to be like so like disgusting and annoying that Kristen is kind of just like falling into Lauren because she's not attracted to him. I mean, she's not attracted to him anyway because she's a lesbian, but like, but like it would be too easy if he was so like actively terrible.
Yeah. I think that for Kristen, it's really important that he is kind of like not even only on paper, but realistically, the person that she's always thought she should be with and thought she wants. And then when she's finally confronted with this being a real option, she kind of realizes that he's not. And I also think for Lauren, I mean, I feel like it was definitely kind of a bold choice for us. I've realized throughout like editing and trying to stay off Goodreads to make her kind of a complicated and morally gray person, whereas he is a very like he and Kristen are both kind of like more sunshine. And but I think that is both important for Kristen, that she realizes that someone who is a little more complicated and not perfect and kind of bitchy. I mean, as a side note, Kristen loves bitchy women. Like that's her type. Her homoerotic best friend is also a bitchy woman. So anyway.
True.
But I think that it's important for her to realize that someone who's like flawed and maybe doesn't always do the perfect thing is still like a better match for her, and someone who's more compelling than someone who is like the perfect guy.
Yeah.
I also think for Lauren, it's a part of her arc by the end, kind of like growing, is realizing, because I think at the beginning she does really view Josh as sort of this like pathetic person. And in a way, I mean, there are things about him I think
that are pathetic and basic and stupid.
Yeah, I think he's great, but I am surprised when people think he's like a totally flawless person, because I do think he's flawed. I think in some ways, and I don't think it's necessarily his fault. Like, I think, The Bachelor as a show really does make people see things in a very surface level way.
Yeah.
And also it like totally puts the lead on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Like everybody around them idolizes them because
Yeah.
really they're the only option.
Yeah.
No, the most like Josh moment of Joey's season was when he was walking through Malta and he's like, there's a real medieval vibe
Yes.
about this
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this city is thousands of years old, my guy. Like, he's
Yeah.
so fratty, but like in a, oh, like I want to pinch his cheeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And I think I'm glad, like, I think Josh had to be a good guy because, again, I think Lauren really goes from this thing of like, this guy is just like this representation of like heterosexuality, and we're all here like for superficial reasons, including him. And she kind of like realizes at the end, you know, like he actually is a good guy. And I think that's part of her growth too.
Yeah.
I think it would have been kind of an easy way out to make him be very villainous. And also that would have just added a lot of drama in a book that already has a lot of drama from a lot of other angles too. So I liked him almost being kind of like a comic relief and then like a feel good character as well.
And also let's not forget that like he actively like distances himself from the girl that is a good match.
Spoiler.
I thought it was okay.
It's okay. It's okay. I think the majority of people here have finished the book, so we're all good.
Well, I'm sorry if you haven't. However, I forget what's a spoiler because I wrote it so long ago.
No, you literally wrote I mean, not the whole thing, half the thing, but you wrote the whole thing together. It's all good. You're so deep within it. It's like what even is a spoiler anymore?
Right. I mean,
Um,
okay. And you like to not go too far into it, just like he is,
I think he makes mistakes as well.
yeah, he's actively into two women who are
Not
giving him very little.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's actively into two lesbians.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a silly little goose. So I'm wondering if you guys had to do research like on The Bachelor for writing this, or were you just so fully immersed in Bachelor Nation that you could kind of just start writing it from the get?
The latter.
Yeah. I mean, I spend a lot of time on Bachelor Reddit and
Oh my God.
going through like people's jokes and theories. And I always say, I feel like that helped me with a lot of the humor, specifically, like seeing what people find funny about the show, seeing the tweets and Reddit posts. Because I know what we find funny, but you know, sometimes when you're watching with your friends, you're like, I don't know if this is our own little bubble or the same in jokes that everyone else has. But honestly, that was a lot of the research we did. We did not read many memoirs or anything. I mean, I naturally end up reading a lot of podcast transcripts from people on the show. So I do feel like I have a good handle of the contestants. But
Lydia has like an encyclopedic knowledge. Like she can remember what happened on like which season with which lead and like on which date.
I love The Bachelor.
I mean, I do too, but like it's in one year out the
It's a
other.
comfort
Like
show.
I forget the second the season ends. I forget. But
That's fair.
honestly,
I'm the same way. Like I've watched every episode of every season for the past like 15 years, and yet I could not tell you who The Bachelor was in like 2017.
right.
Yeah.
I like the one thing that I did do is I wrote a lot of the confessionals and I went back to like whatever season was streaming on Hulu and just like fast forwarded to the confessionals to kind of see what they like, how they talk in it, and the kind of, and try to like work backwards from the answers that they give to see what the question was that prompted it.
I actually did some of that too with some of the dates. I remember when I did like a tantric yoga date, I rewatched, there are like 8 of those, and I just found on YouTube, and I literally lifted like the description of the person leading the date, and they always say the same things. And
of course,
quoting that. And now it's really fun because we watched the show together and we're like, they are speaking the same way that we wrote in the book.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Very comforting how cyclical it is.
No, it was so, I think I made my mom read this because she and I FaceTime and watch The Bachelor together. And we have since I moved out, like 10 years ago, Jesus. And she's like, obsessed, but always makes fun of like the tantric yoga dates. And she was like rolling on the floor over these scenes. So shout out to Stella. All right. Well, can you share a little bit about what you're working on now? A
Yeah,
little bit, as much as you feel comfortable sharing, because I know a little bit and I'd love for you to share a little bit.
just a little bit. We are working on another dual POV rom-com. It is set in like the music world. Still kind of like tonally similar. The same kind of like pop culture-y,
Yeah.
Very
context.
angsty.
Very angsty. This one is like angst up the wazoo. It is a second chance romance. So, you know, the angst is kind of a given with that. There's a lot of pining. Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah,
I don't know how much else we can say, but
I know. It is definitely very different because we really wanted to sort of, I mean, like we were talking about with the coming out story, we definitely wanted our next one to be characters who were already like sort of fully immersed in queer
Yeah.
worlds. I mean, I think there's a lot of value to like both kinds of stories, especially in romance, but we wanted to do something a little different. So that's been kind of refreshing because I feel like Here for the Wrong Reasons it really turned into like a book about compulsory heterosexuality, like at its
yeah.
core. Like we kind of set it in this world that is sort of like Compet as a show.
Mhm.
And this is kind of the opposite. This is sort of like the setting is just like queerness.
Yeah.
So it's a very different vibe, but it has a lot of our same hallmarks of kind of bitchy characters and angst and like
I'm incapable of not writing a bitchy
like
character. And you know, a lot of people think or like say that Kristen is like a sunshine character, and like she doesn't say a lot, but she thinks. She's like judging
Oh,
people all
100%.
the time.
She's a rodeo
Yeah,
queen.
right. Like
Yeah.
she's gonna be like professional
Yeah.
and like not say anything mean to your face, but she might think it.
and she
I
likes
love
the
it.
bitchy women.
It's true.
Okay, so you are a month and a few days having your book out in the world. Is there a reaction from a reader that stood out to you?
Ooh, it's a good question. Um,
I thought one. We got a message from someone that I remember we were excited about who was talking about how much it meant to her that we use the word lesbian so much in the book. Because she was like, I just feel like it is rare that you see like two characters who are really owning that label and like saying it out loud so many times. And I did really like that, especially because it's a book so much about coming out and like realizing who you are. And I think there are sometimes, I mean, even like I would say in both of our experiences personally, there sometimes is a lot of work before you like claim labels like bisexual or lesbian. Like you use a lot of it's like hard to kind of choose the right words and like own them. But I thought that was
that's
cool.
like why we have umbrella terms
Yeah.
and everything. But yeah, it was important for us in this book to name them both as lesbians. And we did actually like change the jacket copy to say like lesbian love story instead of, I think it was just like queer before, which it is also a queer love story, but we wanted to be like super, super intentional about that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, that was all of my questions. So now we can move on to the rapid fire round. And if you are listening and have any questions for Annabel and Lydia, drop them in the chat box and we will ask them at the end of the rapid fire round. Okay, here we go. So you can each answer respectively for yourselves. What are you currently reading?
She's reading like 6 books at a time. She does this thing where she takes them all to the coffee shop. She reads one chapter of each, cycles through it. Sorry, that's not rapid fire, but I'm reading Moby Dyke, which is a book. It's nonfiction about a writer who goes to the remaining lesbian bars in the US. So I just started that. I'm having a great time.
Lovely.
I will give the name of one that I'm reading.
Yes.
I'm reading Like Happiness, which I got from the Sapph-Lit book swap, and I'm really enjoying it.
Love it.
We also read a lot of sapphic romance novels. I read them out loud to Annabelle while she cooks. It's kind of our little tradition. So right now we are reading Late Bloomer together by
Very
May.
amazing. What is a book that you recommend everyone read?
The Miseducation of Cameron Post.
That's a good one. Mine are always changing so much. I will say, to keep on the rom-com theme, oh my gosh, sorry, so much pressure. There's so many books I love. I'll say our favorite one that I think we read together was Just As You Are by Camille Kellogg. We really, really liked.
Love. And then what's a book coming out soon that you're excited to read or excited for other people to read if you've already read an arc?
I'm excited for the next Ashley Herring Blake, Make the Season Bright.
Yeah.
She's
too.
another one of our favorites that we read together.
Yeah.
Love.
I'll go with that one.
Okay. Who is your favorite bachelorette in Bachelor Nation history?
In history.
Mine's Gabby.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Hannah Brown was a really fun season.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As a person, I feel like I love both the Rachels, Rachel Lindsay and Rachel Recchia.
Yep. Love. And then who is your favorite bachelor in Bachelor Nation history?
Joey.
Probably Joey. He did a good job.
He did a really good job.
Honestly, he was better than Josh. Like, I think he was a little more genuine.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Do we think he and Kelsey are gonna last?
Honestly,
I
like,
hope so.
at least for the next few years, like,
They're
you know,
cute.
At least.
I really liked her.
and I don't know if you've like read their interviews after, it's like clear that he knew that she was the one for a while before the end of the season, which is always a good sign.
Okay. Favorite dating reality show besides The Bachelor?
I had this one that I loved that was canceled. That was, oh my gosh, what was it called? It was on Netflix. It was like they would choose one person and send them on like 5 first dates, and then they just chose someone for a second date, and it was so good. And
Oh wait, I remember this.
Yes, it was great. There were like a lot of queer episodes. There were like a lot of people of all ages too. So there was like
and they like did different cities. There was like they went to this bar that my ex bartended at. In like one of the episodes, they like went on 5 different dates at this one bar. And I was like, I can't watch this episode. But they also did like New Orleans. Yeah, I remember that. That was like one of my quarantine watches.
It was honestly a very good like depiction of real dating, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we also enjoyed like the Ultimatum Queer Love, but it was kind of depressing to watch. So
I find that a lot of the Netflix ones like
feel dark.
Like Love is Blind is like super dark to me. Like I kind of have to tap out after the first few episodes because it feels really bleak.
Yeah.
I would say I live for the Selling Sunset franchise. Like,
it's not a dating show.
I know.
But
I know
it could be.
in a way it is. I just if we're talking about reality TV shows, the serotonin that runs through my body when I know that there's a season coming, unmatched.
Who would you cast Kristen and Lauren as if your book were to become a movie?
Well, when we were writing, we saw brunette Dove Cameron as Lauren.
It was hard because we were really picturing them as like Bachelor contestants more so than actors. It was easier for us to watch the show and be like, oh, that kind of looks like I remember thinking that Susie looked a little bit like how I pictured Kristen from Clayton's season.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. And I was sort of picturing like for Lauren, also like a Victoria F from Peter's season.
Yep.
Kind of Maria vibe too in retrospect.
Yes, 100% Maria. My favorite contestant ever in history.
Oh yeah.
She
Maria.
was very Lauren coded to me.
Yeah.
So deeply.
The thing when she goes and like changes her outfit and stuff, I was like, that's something she would do.
Yeah.
Love. If you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Julian Baker.
Of course,
Maybe
naturally.
like Taylor Swift again.
Oh my God. Favorite Sapphic movie or TV show to watch?
This is a controversial choice. Well, maybe it's not Sapphic.
What were you gonna say?
I love the movie Kissing Jessica Stein. There's a lot of like discourse about it, like whether or not it's like a Sapphic movie. I won't spoil it if anybody like hasn't seen it, which it's kind of like a niche pick, so. But I find like the exploration of sexuality and like the depiction of like female friendship to be really, really beautiful, and I love that movie.
I love.
This is wild for me to say, but the only thing that keeps coming to mind is the Degrassi storylines. I love Degrassi. This is something about me. And there are a lot of like queer storylines on that show that are like very, very close to my heart and were very formative for me.
I love it. I've actually never seen Degrassi ever.
It's a journey. I made her watch. This is when I knew she loved me. She watched all 18 seasons of the show with
You're
me.
18 seasons.
And several of them.
Someone's watching it. I'd see in the comments.
Yes.
Thank you. So good. It's honestly amazing. And if you start from the beginning, it takes you from like 2001 to like 2018. And it is so cool to watch like the style, the slang. Like there are many like little phases where they clearly are trying to copy other teen shows that are like popular at the time. So you reach this point when clearly like the CW started getting big and they start doing all these zany like plot lines where you're like,
Someone's in a gang.
Yeah, someone's in a gang. There's like a blackmail thing, like, and then it's so good. And then it kind of finds its way back at the end to like a lot of like the Netflix seasons. It goes on Netflix for a bit, and then they actually tackle a lot of like really important issues. Like if you watch, you will be like there ahead of their time with a lot of like.
You actually can't get her start like talking about this.
Isn't
Drake on it?
What?
Isn't Drake on it?
Yes, he is.
And I'm always saying like, Drake should really be thinking, what would Jimmy do?
Yeah, because his character
was always on the right side of history.
Yeah.
Drake, not so much.
Not so much. Okay, last rapid fire question. Favorite Sapphic person to follow on social media?
You.
Besides me.
How about your girlfriend?
Annabel and Lydia.
I mean, we love all of like the now out Bachelor contestants.
That's true. We are big like Becca, Haley, Kiyoko.
We love
fans.
Becca Tilley. Becca Tilley is Kristen. Like,
yeah, she
we
is.
actually
so true.
We went back and watched the season that she was on, and it was kind of
eerie.
crazy, like verbatim the things that she was saying. I was like, God damn. Like,
I need to rewatch it now. Maybe there's like a YouTube compilation of Becca Tilley's like gayest moments on her season. I'm sure someone has made that.
Yeah.
Okay, love. Well, we're have a few questions in the chat. Let me just scroll back up. If anyone has any more, feel free to drop them in. Shelby asks, do you have fan casts or people IRL who you pictured as the characters while you're writing? You said Susie from Clayton season and Maria, but that was after you've written it. So like anyone while writing you were thinking of for Lauren?
Yeah, Dove Cameron with dark hair was kind of thinking. But that also was a little bit impacted by how often I was listening to that song Boyfriend that she dropped while we were writing this. That really seemed to fit the book for me.
Love it.
Yeah, for Lauren, anyone that has like a really cunty energy, like
yeah,
like Kristen was like really, really hard for me to pin down. I honestly, because I was also trying to think of like out actors
Yeah.
and stuff. And I could not like, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't really pin her down.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's like kind of a lame
I
answer.
think you and I were talking one time and we were like Lily Reinhart or like Renee Rapp were like the two blonde
Yes.
outfits.
But
Yeah.
Renee Rapp is kind of a Lauren, I think, which is hard because she's
Mm.
blonde.
It's
But
just
her,
she's Regina George.
Exactly.
yeah, her energy also like in Sex Lives of College Girls, I felt like that vibe is very
Very
Lauren.
Lauren.
Yeah, I feel like if Lily Reinhart were like 10 years younger, she would be perfect. But
Yeah,
like
Kristen's kind of a baby.
Kristen's like so young.
Yeah. No, when I watch The Bachelor now, I'm like, you're only 22. What the fuck? Get off
Yeah.
this show. But when I was 16 watching it, I was like, wow, so old.
No, I know. I'm like, we've aged out.
Yeah, we really have. God damn. We're like, if I were to go on The Bachelor now, I would be the one that Maria's like, you're insecure about being old. And I'm like, eh. Shelby also asks, did you do research on rodeo culture and rodeo queens and horse girl culture, obviously?
Yes. So I actually was raised like partially in Montana, which is why it's like such an important place to me. I do know how to ride a horse. I did take riding lessons when I was a kid. I can ride Western. I never competed. But I did grow up like going to rodeos and stuff. And I am honestly like every time I go, I'm like so besotted with the rodeo queens because they're so cool.
They're
Like,
so amazing.
if you've ever seen barrel racing, like it is so fucking cool.
Mhm.
And like they're so strong. And yeah, I'm like, oh my God. But I did actually do some research, which is how I found out that it has like the same pageant queen culture of
Yeah.
like, cannot have a partner when you're like a reigning queen because you need to be like publicly seen as like an attainable
Yeah.
figure, which was
Which
really
fits the book
helpful
so well,
because
yeah.
it upped the stakes. And so that was really, really helpful. But the rest of like the setting was just like my own experience.
Love. Yeah. No, people don't understand how hard it is to ride a horse. And
Yeah.
I think we should put more respect on horse girls' names and how strong our thighs are. That's all.
Exactly.
That's all. Shelby also asks if you could take the character you wrote to any chain restaurant, where would you go and why? I love this question.
I would take Kristen to Hooters.
Yes.
I'm imagining her like that picture of Kristen Stewart, like surrounded by like the Hooters waitresses.
Incredible.
I would take Lauren back to Applebee's, recreate her hometown date.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh, it was Olive Garden? Okay, I clearly haven't read this in a while.
Have you read the
it was
book?
Olive Garden, I guess. I I forgot which one.
Trinity asks, have you guys ever watched the show Unreal? It's about the producers behind A Bachelor Spoof. I love that show.
I did watch it. I that was one of my quarantine watches. Another like really dark show. Like that is like I was stressed.
But it was made by former producers of Bachelor Nation. It's
Yeah.
apparently scarily accurate.
Yeah. I like you never watched it.
I never watched it actually, yeah.
You would love it.
I fear that it would also stress you out real bad.
Oh, it's stressful.
It's like real stressful. But yeah, I watched that like several years ago.
Incredible. Shelby asks, have you read any other reality dating show books that you recommend? We read Patricia Wants to Cuddle for Sapph-Lit a while ago.
I need to read that
It's
one.
not a romance, but has Bachelor show elements.
Yeah, it's interesting. We actually have tried not to read a lot of them. I think
we tried not to read them while we were drafting.
Yeah.
Because actually the Charm Offensive got announced while we were in the middle of drafting. And we were like,
Yep.
Yeah, Yeah, we do need, now that we are kind of done, I think we do have like a stack that we want to catch up on.
Yeah.
And I know there are a lot coming out this year too. Like I think there's another like Unreal style one that's coming
You're
out
at
from
the head of the trend.
But yeah, we do really want to read The Charm Offensive because we love Alison Cochran's other stuff.
Oh, she's
Really,
But we were terrified that we just wanted plausible deniability in case there were any like overlapping jokes.
which apparently there is an overlapping joke.
Yeah.
But we now have plausible deniability.
Yeah.
I've read The Charm Offensive and I loved it. Allison's amazing. But I don't know what the overlapping joke is, and I'm going to look
There
for
were
it
just
now.
multiple Laurens.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of Laurens on.
And then there
But that's why we wrote that joke. Always a lot of Laurens.
Always. Well, that was the last question. Thank you both so much for joining. Is there anything else you want to say to the Sapph-Litties listening?
just, I love you guys. I love your community. Yeah, it's just a really, really, really beautiful community. And Nina has done such a beautiful job. And also, I am on the Discord. I am not in the monthly book club channel because I know that's a reader space and I wanted you to feel free to like discuss stuff, but I'm on the Discord if you ever want to be friends in New York City or ask any questions about the publishing process or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm
Just
around.
like, thank you for reading and for thinking about it critically. And like, it's a really surreal experience it's a really surreal experience to be talking about something that we wrote in like such a, I don't know, like real capacity. So
Yeah, it feels very special. The book means a lot to us.
Yeah.
I
It's
love you
kind
guys so much.
we love you.
Well, let's get a cocktail soon. And I miss you both. And I love you both. And thank you for coming again. Thank you all, Sapph-Litties, for joining. We have our Zoom chat at 2 p.m. So have some lunch and then come right back. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.